Now, finally, before I close, there's this thing about Jay Bundy. And I got some feedback this morning and say, Sal, I was so upset with you because you're egging him on and you're helping promote him. The guy's crazy. I was like, really? And he said, yeah. In fact, concern was raised for my personal safety. The guy's just kind of like unhinged. Do some of you know who he is? Let me see. So there was. I'm hearing funny sounds out there. Sorry. There was some reference to where he said, I need a hug or something. That was a joke, an inside joke. And I'll show you what the inside joke is. The inside joke was, I did a video said, there's an evolutionary biologist who needs a hug. And let me show you, see if I could show.
Doesn't it seem like your search engine?
Okay. So the title of this, the evolutionary biologist who needed a hug.
50 times more earwax than cotton swabs.
So first I have to get through the commercials and I'll show you the video. Why don't I include the audio? I want you to see this, just so you can understand who Jay Bundy is. I think you might be entertained. So let me get this all set up. Stop screen. I'm going to share my screen. And I'll just let you, you can enjoy this for your viewing pleasure. It's only like 3 minutes long. And so there were a lot of questions last night from someone called Jay Bundy. All right. So.
Sal. Shame, shame, shame on you, my friend, for misrepresenting science so egregiously. Folks, I have been planning tonight's impromptu expose on Sal for your viewing pleasure. But as I am the fastest rising star in the entire counter-apologetics community, I am grossly in sync, in lockstep, so to speak, with the will of the people in this entire industry. And so it just so happened that my broadcast tonight overlaps with Sal's live debate against T-Jump. How about them apples? But folks, let's get a couple of things clear. I have not been invited to debate Sal tonight. On top of that, I am far more entertaining than T-Jump. Amen. Hallelujah.
Victory, 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 victory.
And I will not stop until I have victory, 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 victory. And since Sal is too scared to challenge the United States champion to a one-on-one encounter himself, consider the champion challenging you right here, right now. I will not stand for being dodged. If you were going to talk shit about evolutionary biology on the internet, you need to bring that motherfucking nonsense to an evolutionary biologist. But no, you'd rather debate T-Jump's chair. And then you use that nonsense to counter-apologize, to counter-program the most important counter-apologetics show all week and weekend long. That, of course, being late-night counter-apologetics. Sal, I will not stand for this. Consider yourself my next victim. And if you want to do something about it, I dare you to try. Because you are going to have to kill me before you can beat me for this United States championship. And in the meantime, I will whoop your ass every single time all over the goddamn internet. I am calling you out. Let's see you do something about it. It's time to start the goddamn show. The champ is here and I am on fire.
What can I say? And look who showed up. The man himself. So, well, thank you for visiting here.
No matter how old you are, no matter what genes you are born with.
So, I will, don't worry, folks. Sal is in absolutely no danger yet. I wouldn't want anything to happen to him before he gets in the ring with me. The champ is always ready to wrestle. See you soon. Kisses. So last night, several times, there's several super chats where someone makes a donation and people were pleading for Sal versus Jay Bundy. I think I've been advised that maybe for my personal safety, it's not a good idea. I think Jay's a little unhinged. He might need some psychiatric help. So sorry, guy. I think you need to obsess over someone else. But there was history between us indirectly. And so let me highlight what that is, just so people, oh yeah. And thank you, Fran Marie. So let me try to give a little bit of history.
This breakthrough science reveals how this weird...
So, Robert. Mind matters. So just to introduce the characters here. There was a show recently this year on artificial intelligence, just to introduce the lab. So there is a laboratory called the Evolution Informatics Lab, and also there's a project by the Discovery Institute that deals with artificial intelligence. And it's called Mind Matters News. And you could see there were 4 shows that involved me, and it was, you could see it says Sal Cordova, and this is where, actually, let me play a little bit of this. I want you to hear a little bit.
Welcome to Mind Matters News. I'm your competitive host, Robert J. Marks. We're talking today to Sal Cordova, who made bucks card counting in Vegas. He's sharing his insight into the world of gambling, and it's just been a fascinating trip, but we want to talk about a little bit more. Have you ever taken advantage of your skills in betting with other people?
Yes, team play.
Oh, team play. But this is a team play at a casino.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to tell you one of the great examples. I want to tell you a way to be honest and always win in a lottery.
Actually, I forgot that part, how to be honest and always win the lottery. You can go there. Why don't I just drop the link in the chat? There were actually 4 shows. The entire month of 1 month in the summer were just me and Dr. Marks talking. We recorded it in his office down there at Baylor when I visited this past May. So Robert Marks and Sal. Robert Marks is, so I'm just introducing who all these are, and it relates to Pocket Locker 86 and all this kind of the history. Robert Marks is a distinguished professor of electrical and computer engineering. He had done work in evolutionary algorithms. He's an ID proponent. I would probably be kind of in the old Earth creationist camp. He's not a young Earth creationist. I don't know if he even characterizes himself as an old Earth creationist, but he definitely, it's a very interesting story. I think I could share this, part of his Christian testimony. He either became a Christian or then started seriously pursuing the Christian faith and living it, because he wasn't a very good academic. He was, probably not hanging around the best crowds, but then when he got to college, the Lord worked on his heart. He became a very dedicated Christian, and then his academic career flourished. And he succeeded so much, he became a professor at various universities and then promoted to distinguished professor. I mean, that's, the title says it all, that he's a distinguished professor. He gets certain rights and privileges to have attained being called a distinguished professor by a university, there was a, let me see, he was in the movie Expelled. So the movie Expelled about academics who were getting persecuted because of their sympathy toward intelligent design. So there was a laboratory in 2007 that was being formed called the Evolutionary Informatics Lab. The existence of the lab got him into trouble, and the Baylor University shut it down. And then the president of the university got in so much trouble over that, plus some other things. They fired him, thank God, John Lilly. And Ken Starr, who actually went to my church, McLean Bible, went down to Texas and then became the new president of the university, and then made a public apology to Dr. Marks over the Evolution Informatics Lab. So some of you from like 14 years ago, there was a big movie, motion picture movie called Expelled. It featured people like Carolyn Crocker, who was at George Mason University. And she and I were in the prestigious scientific journal Nature 2005. When that article came out, 3 weeks later, she was fired from the university. It was very sad. She ended up in the movie. And then Robert Marks was in the movie because they shut down his lab. Now, the funny thing is, I was invited to be a graduate student at the Evolution Informatics Lab. And they shut that lab down. I ended up going to Johns Hopkins instead of Baylor. It worked out well because I was still working in the area. I didn't have to quit my job, and I could take care of my mom, my widowed mother, while I went to school. Lived in Virginia, commuted all the way to Baltimore, Maryland to take classes. And actually just south of Baltimore, there at the Applied Physics Lab, which is it's still up in Maryland. It was a long commute. And so, hang on, let me extinguish this phone call. I'm sorry about that. I better call. It's a friend of mine, and I need to find out what's going on. But I'm about to finish up because we're talking about Jay Bundy here and my indirect history with him. So, the lab shut down. I ended up at Johns Hopkins instead. Didn't go to Baylor, but I maintained a distant relationship with Dr. Marks. We'd seen each other, and the project I was going to be working on, and I got offered a nice sum of money plus a graduate degree, was to deconstruct these evolutionary algorithms that claim to show that Darwinism actually works in biology. And one of those things was a project called Avida, which, and God bless you, Lois, for remembering this thing about Dr. Marks. Yeah, there's lots of stuff about this. Let me see if I could, Robert Marks. So there is Dr. Mark, way back in 2007, this is 15 years ago. I'm just going to show the article here. Dr. Marks was thanking me when I saw him this past summer for standing up for him on the internet blogs and defending him. So there's this problem at Baylor University at the Evolutionary Informatics Lab. Let's see if they even mention it. Yeah, there it is, the Evolutionary Informatics Lab. Now that may sound kind of funny that it's actually it is somewhat a laboratory whose results are actually critical of biological evolution. But it's an evolutionary informatics lab because we have things called evolutionary algorithms that are used professionally. And so what we can learn about evolutionary algorithms is you need a designer to make an evolutionary algorithm work. So Bill Dembski is really kind of big on like intelligent design, but maybe there's an intelligently designed evolutionary process. Of course, that is definitely not traditional young earth creationism, where you have a miraculous process we can't understand, and we're not expected to ever really understand it in detail. Whereas evolutionary informatics is the idea that God maybe designed a biosphere and natural selection so that it can guide a creature to evolve, but you still need intelligent design. I may be mischaracterizing this a little bit, in my simplification. So the evolutionary informatics lab really is just seeing what kind of programming do you have to do to be able to make an evolutionary algorithm that, for example, can solve, well, the classic one's the traveling salesman problem. Like if a salesman has to travel to so many cities, what's the most efficient route so he's not going back and forth? Can he go from city to city? It's actually a very difficult problem to solve if you have a lot of points and you don't have a computer, but you can use what they call a genetic algorithm to come up with a best or a good enough solution to the problem of the traveling salesman. So because we have these genetic algorithms, we're just like, well, evolution works that way in biology. And some people try to extend that idea and say this is proof of evolution. And one of those groups was Avida. Someone named Adami, I think Chris Adami, Ofria, Pennock, and Lenski. The last two names are important, Pennock and Lenski. So you have Bill Dembski, Robert Marks, and then later on Winston Ewart, Eric Holloway. I was supposed to be in that lab, or at least I was invited. And there were others affiliated with the lab, like George Montañez, who went on to Carnegie Mellon, and Jorge Fernandez. So there was a group there. Peripherally, there's Michael Behe, who was not an official member of the lab, but he had some important things to say. Very important in his book, Darwin Defaults. So just kind of imagine that lab. On the other side, there's Adami, Ofria, Lenski, and Pennock. And guess who is Jay Bundy's advisor? It was Pennock, Robert Pennock. There's also a little backstory of Pennock. One of my professors was Richard Dawkins' drinking pal at Oxford. And then I saw that professor's name in Pennock's book on intelligent design. I was like, oh. Anyway, so that's the drama. So our group was very critical. One of their missions was to deconstruct the Avida project, to also criticize Lenski. And so this has been a 15-year conflict. Some of the stuff developed by the Evolution Informatics Lab, the mathematics are just horrendously I'm sorry, I got distracted. Sal, you featured okay. So anyway, let me just try to finish my story. I lost my train of thought. So there's been a long history between Jay Bundy, his group versus mine. It's basically two rival labs trying to discredit each other. So that's kind of the heritage. And it just so happened, I don't know how, it was only through Robert Beatty, like this month, that he said, hey, do you know what this guy's saying about you? It's like, I don't even know who he is. And then I found out who he is. And I'm like, oh, well, that's neat. So basically, when he wanted to challenge me to debate, I actually didn't want to debate him. I mean, I think he needs to go to a psychiatric institution first. I'm sorry to be mean. I'm trying to be helpful here, Jay. I think you got some issues, buddy. I think you have some issues there. You're kind of creepy, guy. But I did want to have a chance to talk to Pennock, and I wanted to have someone that could fill me in on Avida, because I remember when I actually worked on the project briefly. I had independently worked on the Avida project without knowing before I went to Dr. Marks, and I put in something that got Evan Dorn, Adami's PhD student, to try to have a discussion with me, and I should have been really mean to him. But being the nice guy, it's like I'm not going to be any more confrontational than I need to be. I perceived he was just giving me BS so he could get through his PhD program. And Evan Dorn, I hope you appreciate the fact I didn't call you on it. I tried to make sure you got through your PhD program. I hope you'll return the favor, because the stuff you're saying was utter BS. And there you go. I just wrote my dissertation on Avida, and Pennock doesn't this debate with creationists. I guess you're stuck with me. Okay, Jay Bundy. This could be a deal with the devil here, because I'll tell you just for you. This is directed at you, Jay Bundy. There was an earlier version of Avida way back in 2004. Richard B. Hopp was saying, Sal, you don't understand evolution. And I said, evolution goes the wrong way. He said, no, look, I got Avida working this. So I was talking about the experiment of Spiegelman's experiment. And I said, evolution goes the wrong way, because in Spiegelman's experiment, the quote unquote test genome was shrinking. Fitness was improving, but you went from, actually, just so I don't totally mess this up, Spiegelman's monster. Spiegelman's monster. So so now I'm getting really nerdy, and I need to call my dear friend, because he just called me. So Spiegelman's monster. I'm sorry to laugh. You just said, also, my bipolar is treated. I take meds every day, and I see my psych regularly. Thanks for your concern. I'm doing very well regard to my mental health. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Okay, hey, all right. There's a saying by Seneca, there's no great genius without a touch of insanity. Okay, if you're in that category, I might let it slide. All right, just be a little careful with that, buddy. So let's get back to Spiegelman's monster and Avida. Spiegelman's monster is the name given to an RNA chain of only 218 nucleotides that is able to be reproduced by the RNA replication enzyme, RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, or also called RNA replicase. It's named after its creator, Saul Spiegelman, at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, who first described it in 1965. Spiegelman introduced RNA from a simple bacteriophage Q beta into a solution which contained Q beta's RNA replicase, some free nucleotides, and some salts. In this environment, the RNA started to be replicated. After a while, Spiegelman took some RNA and moved it to another tube with fresh solution. The process was repeated. Shorter RNA chains were able to be replicated faster, so the RNA became shorter and shorter as selection favored speed. After 74 generations, the original strand with 4,500 nucleotide bases ended up as a dwarf genome with only 2,800 bases. The short RNA sequence replicated very quickly in these unnatural circumstances. All right, so I still remember this. This was 18 years ago, but it's crystallized into my mind. It's important to the later work I did with Dr. Sanford, and I hope to do with Dr. Marks, because just for the sake of full disclosure, Jay Bundy, I want to have communication with you because I want to destroy your work. That's why. Don't think that I'm doing this because I'm trying to be nice. So what happened with this? You had a genome of 4,500. Natural selection whittled it from 4,500 to 218. That's a factor of about, say, 20. And I said, Richard Hopp, Dr. Richard Hopp, big evolutionary proponent on the internet. Evolution goes the wrong way. And he said, no, Sal, look at Avida. And I laughed. I said, you're gonna use a computer simulation to try to refute an experimental result? I mean, I could make a video game that violates all the known laws of physics, and it'll still at least computationally model this silly universe. We have video games like that. The fact that it does, the fact that the Avida model doesn't model what's happening in experimental results is kind of disturbing. And so what did I do? There's an old version of Avida that's not there anymore. I took it there, and they had this, and I, Hop said, okay, you need to study this, I'm not going to talk to you. You need to learn. Just really condescending. And Dr. Hop's there in hell now. He just, he tries to be cordial and, he tried to be very civil to me, but every now and then he just said stuff that's condescending. It's like, sir, you're burning in hell now. I don't, sorry, sir. But you're condescending and you're wrong. You've been disproven by Alinsky's own experiments in 2017 at the long-term evolution experiment stuff. Numerous observations have falsified it, and then it shows Avida was wrong. But it didn't stop Richard Hop in 2004 from saying, you need to learn this. So I humored him, and I learned how to run Avida, a version that doesn't last anymore. You won't find it anywhere, in fact, I think in the archives. And I played a little trick on him. I said, they had this radiation parameter where you can model the mutation rate. You can affect the mutation rate by exposing the little digital creature, make-believe creature. It's not a real physical biological organism. It's some concoction of man. This basically short machine code. And Ben Rex would probably understand this. So would Schnoil, who understand computer architecture. This is at the machine language level, and they're trying to evolve something like a XNOR or one of these slightly more than trivial logic gates. And so I cranked up this radiation parameter. It simulate just terrible mutation. I cranked it up all to 50. It's just some absurd number. I said, this is like taking like your cat and putting it in a microwave, cranking it up all the way to high, running the microwave oven for 3 days, and then telling the cat afterward to reproduce. And all these digital organisms kept reproducing. I said, something's wrong here. I said, Evan Dorn, don't you see? This is a laughable simulation that you could do this, and the creature doesn't die. I could probably put that parameter up to infinity. Don't you see that it's not Royal Truman, who's a great chemist at BASF. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, hopefully he's retired now. And he's also a computational scientist. He rightly pointed out the way Avida replicates its genome, the replication system, the major parts of it are not subject to all the mutation. Only that little segmented part, and that's what I proved. And I told Evan Dorn, I said, this is just kind of, I didn't want to tell him, in harsh words, but technically it's just a farce, guys, that I could do this. Later versions probably don't have that same problem, but I'm like, and I had that result. And then because I had mentioned it in passing in various forums that Bill Dembski watched, he referred me 3 years later to be a student to become a student of Robert Marx, to work on the Avida project, to deconstruct it. And so that was my work. I handed that off to him, and I still have the old emails, and we're just kind of, there's Dr. Marx, me, Bill Dembski, some others, including a physicist. And we were all just kind of laughing at this, and we're saying, well, how do we deconstruct this? They're not, they're not going to be very eager to explain how this system works. They can give us the code, but we really need to explain what they're trying to do. They had all this impenetrable language in their Nature publication. And Winston Ewart tried to work on it. He wrote something on Avida and also like Tierra and all these others. And I felt that they tried to attack it with pure mathematics. And I had objected to that. I said, there's a little easier thing. The computer scientists for the computer science work, maybe we could make stuff about information theory and what sort of things you can construct, in terms of evolutionary algorithms, the limits of the solutions you can find, et cetera, et cetera. So from a pure computer science problem solving perspective, the question of Avida, Tierra, et cetera, has academic interest. And a lot of these academic interests, you think, does it have any practical application? We find that many times some of the stuff we explore is not immediately practical, but then we find out it's not immediately practical, but then sometimes someone finds something of use for it. There's some theorems in mathematics. It's just like I was actually surprised, like the Russell paradox has something to do important in understanding computer security, etc. So these kind of strange questions, it's like, okay, Winston, Bill Dembski, and Robert Marks, you want to write papers on this, that's fine. What I was interested in is showing that it's irrelevant and misleading to use Avida to argue biological evolution proceeds by Darwinian mechanisms. And in one of the papers I published through the Blythe Institute, I specifically cited Lenski using Avida to teach how evolution works. I don't know how long ago that was, but he better stop doing that because that's misleading. His own experiments do not show that that's how natural selection works. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about Avida so I could start to incorporate it and modify it to parallel Lenski's experiments. And so this is going to be really embarrassing for Lenski that he wrote this Avida, advertised it, and that the way it works is not reflected even in his own physical experiments, citing this paper here. And I'll see it. I'll show it to you. This is the paper in question. Proceedings, National Academy of Science. Maybe one of the better titled papers here. Mutator genomes decay despite sustained fitness gains. This is the golden phrase right there. This is like Spiegelman's monster. This is the problem. As Darwinian fitness improves, the genomes go downhill. And last night I was pointing out, I said, look, I showed a paper that said mutation and selection are responsible for the decrease in intelligence in the human population over time. Evolutionists have been saying mutation and selection build up complexity. At least as far as human intelligence, that's not true. Lenski's experiment on bacteria, that's not true. I could show you pangenomic profiles of E. coli and other bacterial species, that's not true. One is going to be very hard pressed to see that mutation and selection actually work in the construction of anything but trivial changes. Anything require multiple simultaneous changes, such as a major protein family that has numerous interacting partners, forget it. And it's false advertising to say that this can happen in gradual incremental steps, because Yes, it can if you have selection pressure to do it, but where would the selection, why should we expect it there? No one has actually calculated the probability that such selection pressures will exist out in the wild. Winston Ewart, Robert Marks, and Bill Dembski tried to formulate some mathematical things saying, depending on these conditions, that, you know, we don't expect this to hold. I don't think we need quite the 180 pages to prove that. I think there's a shorter route, and I had a conversation with Robert Marks about that. If we go just with the geometric arguments that I wish I had had time to discuss yesterday, I could easily show that the likelihood of a selection pressure existing is probably worse than just random mutation. Maybe that's the way I would go. It basically would be a simpler statement of Dembski's displacement theorem. So there you go, Pocket Locker. And Pocket Locker, how can I get a hold of you, Pocket Locker? Maybe we can have a academic discussion. I don't want to debate, sir. I feel I owe it to you in full disclosure what's at stake in it for me. If you want that, I feel I owe it to you to be full disclosure that I have no friendly intention about this. This is for all the beans, for all the marbles on this debate. Now, I sense that you think you're going to win this, so I hope I can trust you. That when I ask you questions about Avida, it's going to be represented correctly. I intend to work with people to write papers that will be very critical of Lenski's work, very critical of the Avida project as far as biology, not as far as its relevance to anything specifically in computer science that does, you know, the improvement of writing algorithms and all. That's not my domain. It is the relevancy of Avida being applied to biological evolution. So if you can, oh my. All right, Pocket Locker. There might be a way you could post in the comment section what your email is. If you have a curriculum vitae with your publications, I'm willing to read it. And I'm really sorry to say this, but I don't think your team, the LTE Avida project, is. I think they have. I think there's either self-delusional or they're hiding important data points because their project is not right. Lenski's own experiments showed that it is a bad model for how evolution actually works. And it's, you know, is this about trying to maintain grants, trying to maintain reputations and keep paying your mortgage? I'm sorry to have to put it in those terms. When you have those pressures, you tend to rationalize, even if you're not willfully lying. There's a lot of pressure to, like, let's say, not be, to maybe give the benefit of the doubt to a bad argument, shall we say? You know, I'd like to know a little bit more about that Avida project. I have some questions about even Adami's original work, because we are reading through that paper the first time. It's like, what are you guys talking about? You're using just all these kind of idiosyncratic, these specialized terms that almost seem made up on the fly, that no one in the industry seemed to use at the time. And if it's and if it happened to be just that it's obscure, they should have had the courtesy to try to explain it, because certainly we had computer science guys working on this looking at it and kind of just rolling their eyes like I was, like, what the heck are you talking about? So and so it's like, is this deliberate obfuscation? And then the paper gets a free pass in the journal Nature because it's pro-evolution, not because of its merits, not because of its scientific merits. So I may call up my friend Eric Holloway, who worked at the Evolution Informatics Lab. He and I are affiliated with the Blythe Institute. I published at the Blythe Institute. We might write an anti-weasel or anti-Avida program. So, Jay, thank you for showing up. If you want to post in the comments section for your contact information, I would be interested. I hope. Thank you for being open about your. Thank you for being open about your mental health issues, and that you're taking your meds and you're seeing a psychiatrist. I feel a little happier to hear about that, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and I'm sorry to just laugh. I'm dealing with a psycho. Oh my goodness. But I want to deconstruct Avida, so that's the basis. I don't think a debate would be very. Okay, thank you, Robert. I started to laugh, Jay. I'm dealing with a psycho. But just to explain the dynamics of last night when I was referring to Jay Bundy, it's like, come on. I wanted to explain what's going on. You know, trying to refute evolution at the academic level is a lot tougher than what you see in debates. This is a 15-year battle between two rival labs over supremacy of who's right. And you got some very fine minds, especially Robert Marx. And then peripherally, there's Michael Behe, who wrote Darwin Devolves. On the side, very much farther out on the side, is the genetic entropy crowd, which is I'm associated with, John Sanford, Ola Hofstra, Bill Basner, myself. And then somewhere in between's Michael Behe, and then the informatics lab. There was a publication, and you'll see all the big names here. BINP. This is kind of in intelligent design circles. This is a famous publication. And you'll see all the affiliated names. And out of this grew a lot of new researchers whose names that it's better you don't know who they are. They are secular researchers. We're moving up the ladder, and they're ID proponents, but we're trying to keep their identities private. So you can see the name here, Robert Marx, and then I worked for John Sanford. I almost worked for William Dembski and Robert Marx at the EIL, and I worked for John Sanford. I would like to continue. I'd like to reestablish a relationship with Robert Marx and William Dembski on a working level, because some of my more recent peer-reviewed papers, academic secular, touch on the work that they had been doing. And going back to this list of people, we have also, I don't really know, Bruce Gordon was at the Discovery Institute. I really don't know him personally. Michael Behe and I have met. He knows, I'm acquainted with him. He knows who I am. So that was a pretty, I didn't expect to go for an hour and 45 minutes. Robert, God bless you, sir. Cease and desist, alphadynamics21@gmail.com. Thank you very much, Robert. God bless you all in the side chat. I know this is just boring academic stuff. That's who I am. I don't necessarily enjoy the academics myself, but I need to do it to move forward with professionally. But this is done for the glory and honor of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. academics are boring, but it is a cross for us to bear. We try to be all things to all men so that some may be saved, and our cross to bear is to be an academic and suffer with the rest of the people there. It gives us an opportunity to reach out. That's the mission field that I feel God has appointed me to, is to be around academics, to witness to them and also encourage them. Academics like Ben Rex here and Schnoil and Mr. Jetty 89, and there's other academics that watch this channel, and I'm grateful for them. 6exotrig is another one. So let me now close the stream with this. Take care and God bless you.